Hello, everyone, and welcome back to On the Curbs IndyCar. I'm your host, Nate Woods, and I'm joined once again by my co-host, Thiemo Albers-Daly. Thiemo, how are we doing this morning?
Pretty good, thank you, Mr. Woods. How about yourself?
Oh, we're getting by here. We had another wonderful race weekend brought to us by the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca Java House Grand Prix of Monterey.
The nice
That's a
short
mouthful.
titles that we get at the moment, isn't it? I'm loving
That's
that.
right. Yeah.
This weekend frustrated me for a number of reasons, which we will get into. And it goes back to what we've been talking about for most of the season, that everyone seems incapable of taking on and beating Pelot consistently. A lot of them can do it every now and again, but no one can really do it for more than one or two races maximum in a row. And
Yep.
that's not how you beat a three-time champion and prevent him from becoming a four-time champion,
Yeah.
especially when he's performing at the level that he's performing at. And I don't mind it too much because it reminds me a little bit of. I'm kind of hoping this is what happens here. We talked a little bit after the race about domination that he's having and how that could impact the series and how domination in other series has impacted those series. I don't think we're going to get the same next season. I hope we don't get the same next season. And by the same, I don't mean that he takes it up a notch further and does even more domination. But I think he's on a tear now, and I think everyone else surely has got to learn. I don't mind if it's only one or two drivers next year that take the fight to him, as long as it's done consistently. Because like I say, it's pointless if there's six or seven of you, if none of you can actually do anything with it rather than just beat him every now and again, because that means you're all just taking points away from each other and not taking them away from him. And I think this weekend was the perfect example of that. And it felt to me at times, and I said this to a friend who was actually at Laguna Seca watching this, and she completely agreed. It was like watching an F1 driver enter F2 and just, but with the F1 car and
Yeah.
just absolutely
Yep.
annihilating them over and over again. You're going, well, no wonder they're not beating, but then you realize it's the same car, it's the same drivers, it's the same
Mhm.
series, and you go, oh, that's not good.
Yeah. I think the only positive takeaway that I brought from this weekend in regards to Pelot running away with it is that he didn't necessarily run away with this race. At least on a straightaway, Christian Lundgaard could still see first place out in front of him. Alex Pelot winning by 35 seconds,
No, it is
race
definitely
after
a
race.
different kind of domination. I think
Mhm.
the thing is, I think he could if he wanted to. He just doesn't feel the need to.
Well,
He's quite comfortable in his position where he is, and he's like, I'm winning. I'm quite comfortable. I don't need to take unnecessary risks. I don't need to push the car any further than I have to. So why should I disappear or try and disappear up the road by 30 seconds? I'm even if they get to me, they still got to get past, and they've proven they can't really do that too much this season
yeah,
anyway.
I don't have the stat as far as how much push to pass he had left
I
at the
think
end
he
of the
had a
race,
decent
but
bit. I think like
uh,
40 or 50 seconds.
that's less than I thought he had. But yeah, I mean that's still.
But either way, that's still way more than I think second, third, and fourth had.
Oh yeah, Colton Herta was pretty much down to
He tapped out. Yeah.
under 10 seconds for the last 10 laps of the race. But speaking of the race, let's jump into it. And
So this shouldn't take too long, really.
yeah, I mean we had a lot of scuffles on track, but on lap one, good jump by Alex Palou. I mean, obviously starting from the pole, and Colton Hurd had a great jump as well.
What amused me so much here was obviously Pato was starting from second, Poulter and third, and the commentary team was straight away going, he's got to capitalize immediately. Pato this is, and take below while he's this close, while he can still see him, and then immediately loses out to Golden Hurter
Yeah,
and
yeah,
never really recovers. And you go, right, that's
yep.
right.
That's the race we're
Never
gonna have.
mind. We'll try again, Portland.
Yeah. But on that first lap, we had both Daly and Schwartzman off in the gravel, but in turn one, I think, wasn't it?
It was turn one or turn three, I think. There was a lot of kind
Maybe
of
turn three.
scuffling going
Yeah.
around, and none of it seemed actually too bad at that point in time. It was later on in the on the first lap that things went haywire. But think, yeah, there was just so much going on, and didn't help. I was watching the Indy NXT races as well, obviously across the weekend, and there was so much scuffling going on in both of those races,
Mhm.
particularly the second one, that I know a lot happened, especially in those opening few corners, but I don't know which series maybe is the one I'm thinking of.
But yeah, you mentioned a little bit more serious wreck there on that first lap with Kiffin Simpson rear-ending Felix Rosenquist.
Yeah, this seems to happen as soon as you get a great result. The next
Yeah.
weekend we're going, hey, they finally figured it out. Oh,
Yeah.
bugger, they're in the wall. They've taken someone
Yep.
else. And I think Rosenquist just, it was whichever car driver was going to be there at that point in time. That was nothing really he could do about it. He was fortunate, I thought, to get going again. I mean, I know it didn't really work out for him in terms of any kind of recovery, but I thought it was small mercy itself that he could keep going after that because it looked like a heavy enough hit into the
It
tire
really
barrier.
did. Yeah, I was surprised
I
that,
thought he was done.
yeah, I mean, he got back to pit road and was able to get some quick repairs and finish the race. And kudos to him. But yeah, it was just, I don't know whether Kiffin Simpson just missed a break zone or if he was anticipating
Just
Rosenquist
looked
to
a
do
bit
something he didn't
squirrely, I
do.
think, battling some of the other drivers and just maybe a combination of that, trying to make sure he didn't, ironically enough, get into any collisions with anyone else. Tires maybe not being fully up to temp, but at the same time they have a couple of formation laps, so that maybe isn't so much of the reason. But yeah, I think uncharacteristic is the key thing here. I think for Simpson, we don't see this from him too often. We're used to him not necessarily finishing high up in the races, but it's not because he's made some kind of error in
Mhm.
driving. He's spun off the track, or he's gone wide somewhere, or he's gone to a collision with someone. So I think that's the silver lining he can take from it, and we can take from it, is that
Yeah.
it's not something he normally does. And again, think that bit of the track as well. Obviously, a lot of the bits here it gets quite narrow at points, and I think definitely on those opening melees and race restarts, you're going to have a bit more of the risk of that happening. And we saw that with other cautions later on. As soon as we had the restart, things got very close and didn't always transpire into something bad, but it got a bit maybe closer for comfort than some pros would
Yeah.
have liked, and definitely getting a tire out onto the dirt and into the gravel, and just about managing to save. I think we saw that with Rasmussen later on. You're going, oh, how did you just manage to avoid spitting that one out and going into the barriers?
Yeah. Uh, Soon after we got back under racing, Jacob Abel found tire barrier as well. And that was
Such
a
bad luck.
strange, yeah, I mean, either he had lost his rear brakes or his throttle was stuck. And that's got to be, either scenario has got to be scary for a driver, regardless of how experienced or inexperienced you might be in the series. But yeah, it was a very strange incident for him.
Yeah, I think they seem to agree that it was a stuck throttle, but regardless, there's nothing you can really do at that point. You're just a passenger in the car.
Mhm.
And again, silver lining, it's nothing you did, Jacob. It's just the luck you appear to have at the moment of as soon as you do well, a little bit like Simpson, we're going to kick you back back down again, and we're going to have a tough learning moment for you, unfortunately. So
Yeah.
I don't know what he would have done necessarily in this race as it was, because we're not used to seeing what he's truly capable of, and he seems, as we talk about, pretty much every race, not quite comfortable in the series in the car yet, but at the same time that's not going to help you with
Yeah.
trying to get a bit more of experience in general.
Right after we opened this up and I was talking about how, Alex Palou wasn't pulling away from the field like we thought he might be able to. I have a special note here, lap 20. Even after two cautions, he had a 6 second lead over Colton Herta.
Yeah, which is essentially the IndyCar version of having a 30-second lead, quite frankly, because we're not used to these kind of long leads in
Yeah.
IndyCar as it is. I think the impressive thing for me with him, not just there, but then throughout all of the race restarts, was how quickly he gapped them to like a second or two. And the majority of the time, it was within that first lap of racing
Mm.
that they went back underway again, and he would just pull clear of them. And you go,
Yep.
you two, you three behind haven't even been fighting each other on a couple of these occasions. He's just doing something that you guys are simply not capable of, and he's running away with it.
Yeah. One thing I noticed with especially Plo, but also Colton Herta um, was on the restart, not just on restarts, but also on like just general green flag conditions on that final turn as they're coming down the front stretch. Those two cars were going way wider than everybody. I mean, they
They,
were taking every
oh,
bit of that curb. And it's like,
it bugged me
is that
so
re
much
is
because I
that really
thought,
the
okay, then,
fastest? Is that really the
well,
fastest way to get through that turn is to ramp your car over that curb every lap?
I was reminded in the commentary this weekend that IndyCar and track limits, they don't really look at them too much of anything. They go, well, we want this to be good racing, so just take the fastest line. And obviously, if you're going wide and you're crashing out, then that's obviously not been to your advantage. So you've learned your lesson in that regard. But we're not going to be F1 about in terms of, oh, you were that much over, we're going to penalise you. And I like that. But then I look at this corner, and like you said, I'm like thinking, that can't be the fastest way round there. And
Right.
especially with how close you are to the car in front coming into there, and then you see the gap as they come out, and you go, clearly, that is not the fastest way of doing that because I'm not seeing Polo do the same thing for starters. And this season, I think it's fair to say if Polo is not doing something, it's probably because you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Maybe try and copy and paste onto your car and your style of driving because whatever you're doing, it ain't working. And I got so frustrated with Kirkwood on that. Not Kirkwood, sorry, Herta. Again, the livery's practically identical this weekend once again, and that caused
Yeah.
headaches for just about everyone. Um, but yeah, I was kind of more leaning towards channeling my inner mates on Colton Herta with seeing him do all of this weekend. And I just, oh, it was one of the many things that just frustrated me about this race. And through no fault of the circuit or below, it was just most of the other drivers.
Yeah. Lap 26, we had another caution. This was another, we had a lot of weird cautions, I feel like, in this race, all for different
Yeah,
reasons, though. And this one, Kirkwood, speaking of Kirkwood, he tagged Renus VK and sent him off spinning in turn three. Um, it took over a minute for IndyCar officials to throw the caution flag.
which they said in commentary was that they didn't want to impact the racing in terms of the drivers out front, so they didn't want to compromise them unnecessarily. But then on the one hand, I thought that's nice of them, but on the other hand, I thought that is bordering on race manipulation
Yeah,
and
exactly.
going,
Yes.
you're sort of choosing who is able to do what there.
And
And
it,
that's not on because that's the whole point of racing is that when stuff goes sideways,
yeah,
you've got to time it right by yourself and be helped out by the governing body.
right. And I took exception to this. I can't believe it took so long for them to throw the caution flag. And VK was in a, he wasn't in a high probability spot, I would say. Um,
But that's not the point.
not the point. The point was you had a car that was stranded in a gravel trap. That gravel trap is there to keep cars from creaming off into the wall. And there's 36 other or 26 other cars on the circuit, and you don't know when another one of those cars is going to come off track into that gravel pit.
Hmm.
And it
Because while
just,
the statistical odds and probabilities of it going into the exact same places where VK is are probably quite small, it's never zero.
it's
And
never
probably
zero.
sod's law, the
That's
one
right.
time that you think, oh, it'll be fine, is when it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So that's why you get it out as soon as possible.
And the thing is I don't get why IndyCar's not throwing these caution flags when they should be.
We
That
had
should
this
have,
later on
you know,
with Marcus Ericsson in a
Marcus
much more
Ericsson.
dangerous
Yeah,
way, I
we'll
would
get
have
to it.
thought.
Yeah.
And it was just, again, everyone, even on the commentary, they had more of a questioning nature about that one, which fairly understandable when you see some of the camera angles of that,
Yeah.
as we'll get to. But for this, it goes, well, consistency, yes, is what we've been asking for, but this is not the kind of consistency that we
Right.
meant because
Right.
this is the dangerous kind.
Yeah. And this, when you're putting drivers and machines in danger for the sake of making sure everybody gets through a pit cycle, that's that's not how you run a series.
That's no bueno.
Yeah. So Kirkwood did end up receiving a stop and go penalty for that on track incident with VK. Um, but because of the pit cycles, we ended up with a unlikely leader of the race going into the green flag with Nolan Siegel.
Yeah, I'm sure he was as surprised as everyone else to be out there. And we've seen this a couple of times this season where through the weird way the pit cycle goes out, we've got the driver out in front going, how far ahead is the next driver? Like, no, you're leading. Like, oh, am I? Oh dear. Right. What do I do?
What are my restart procedures?
Especially then
Uh,
with below Dixon and Kirkwood behind you. If you didn't want three drivers to be
yeah,
right behind you, it's probably those at least two of
those
those
guys.
three.
Yeah. And but you know what? He held his own. He stayed out in front for 11 laps.
Yeah, 11 laps probably longer than we would have thought, considering it's Palou behind him. Potentially because Palou knows he doesn't need to take any silly mistakes
Yeah.
and any unnecessary risks. I mean, want an example of how not to do things when you are in the lead of a championship. Look at Dennis Hauger in the second Indy NXT race for how not to do that, but Palou doesn't make those kind of mistakes. And he got around eventually in a very very nice move, it must be
Mhm.
said, from Palou.
Yeah.
I say all this about don't take any unnecessary risks. It was a part of the track you don't traditionally get too much
Don't
overtaking,
normally
especially around
don't
what was
normally
at the
get.
outside as well.
Yeah. Um, yeah, but I mean things kind of settled down the mid part of the race. Um, after Pelot took the lead back, it was just kind of smooth sailing for him. He had stretched a pretty good distance, almost 5 seconds in front of Herta, and then 20 seconds ahead of third place at one point.
Hmm.
So um, they're at lap 50, and then pit cycle started all over again. Starts to jumble things up. It's kind of ironic to me is lap 68, Scott Dixon comes in for his final pit stop. And how often do we see Scott Dixon being the first driver to take his final pit stop? I would love to go back and find out the statistics on that. Just from this season, how many times he's the first driver to take a final pit stop?
How many times has that worked out for him?
True, but I don't think he's necessarily had the same car that Pelot's had.
No, but I'm also still just a little bit bitter over Road America.
Oh, yeah. But we got down towards the end and we talked briefly about Marcus Ericsson's spin, lap 78. Uh, took another abnormally long amount of time for IndyCar to throw the caution flag for this one. I think with these, and he was stopped on a part of he was stopped on the track.
If
Not,
ever there was a slam dunk time to immediately, like, we've criticized a couple of times about prematurely getting a flag out.
mm,
You think, oh, you could wait a couple of seconds longer or
mm,
something like this. Very rarely have we done it, but there have been times, that even this season, I think the Asante Grand Prix, there were a couple of, the first caution we've had in ages, like, you could have waited a couple of seconds longer, we might have been able to get that.
yeah,
This, though, immediate is what it should have been.
yeah,
And the fact that they waited, I mean, even if they'd waited half as long as they did, that was still an age for
yeah.
what that was.
And on one hand, I get it because we have the hybrid system now. The drivers have the capability of restarting the cars from inside the cockpit. But we also know how unreliable the hybrid system is. They've worked out a lot of the gremlins as far as mid-race, the hybrid system crapping out under green conditions, but restarting the car is still unreliable.
And even if he got going again, which let's just say he manages and it's all perfectly fine, like semi immediately, you still would throw the caution flag because what you're essentially just going to do is just slow down the field a little bit and yeah, bunch him up and all the rest of it. But what's so bad about that? Would you rather just be safe and sorry? And he can still join, he
Right.
can still go off. And again, you saw the various camera angles, the onboards, all the rest of it, and you see nothing coming up that hill. And You only
Yeah,
need two or three cars fighting in a little group and going, well, I'll get him up this hill instead. This time, and I'll get him around the outside going into the
mhm,
corkscrew. And then,
exactly.
bam, straight into Ericsson, and we're having a very different conversation. Less
Yep.
crap as Ericsson's been this season, we're not going to be that mean and try and kill him off. That seems a
Right.
bit harsh.
Yeah, and just I don't get why IndyCar's having trouble with caution flags, and it's not new this season. I mean, we've
No.
obviously we didn't get much chance to give a lot of practice in the first several races of the season, but
Yeah, you almost think they just misplaced it and go, well, we're not going to need that. We'll just
I
we'll
don't
just
need
leave it
that button
up
anymore.
somewhere.
Yeah.
And then they're just
Yeah.
scrambling, going, where's the button gone?
Where's the button? We had one other caution flag. Santino Ferrucci beaches it going into uh, the gravel trap after the corkscrew, which
Yeah,
I
lost
think,
it by himself, by
based
all
on
appearances.
how he was driving all day, I think it was pretty much inevitable he was going to end up in the sand.
It raises an interesting debate and one that you go certain amount of time back in motorsport history, you'd find more acceptable maybe, but now I I haven't quite figured out where I sit on it, and I think he clearly wasn't as ready as he should have been, or as we would have liked him to be, to go racing again this weekend. He was saying he had to take some kind of painkillers or something along those lines to stop his hands from hurting so much because of um, how much pain he was going through in practice, I think. I think at that point, yes, there is a certain bravado with just driving through the pain, but at the same time, you're not just trundling around in, you know, low powered, low speed cars.
Yeah,
You're in an Indy car, and it's one thing if you're risking yourself, and that's to a certain extent fine because you make your own decisions there. But when you're racing with 25 other people on track, and that can then impact them, he's lucky he didn't collect anyone else and didn't have
yeah,
kind of bigger incidents earlier on in the race. I just think had irresponsible, and I'd love to have a bit more of a dive into what defines medically clear go racing and how they make these decisions. Because I guess it's a case by case basis, but at the same
mhm,
time, I would just be intrigued as to what the process for that was in comparison to other drivers in other situations. I mean, we've had it in F1 a few times with drivers that think of Lance Stroll with his hand. He had some surgery and then was fine, and kind of everyone knew that he was never going to be a threat anyway because he's Lance Stroll. But it's more the principle than anything there. And you go again, you only need one sudden spasm of pain or something, or for
mhm,
something to happen, and then say it's at Canada, I think was the Grand Prix you came back to.
yeah,
Um, that's a Wall of Champions hit right there, and maybe you go spinning across the track and cars start plowing into you, and you go, if you just duck Drogovic in, yes, there's a chance that could still have happened, but not for those reasons. And I
yeah,
think that's the key thing.
yeah. And I think one thing to keep in mind is that, unlike in F1, where all of those teams have a stable of reserve drivers, whether it's a true reserve driver or it's an F2 driver that they can move up in a race. We don't have that in IndyCar. I mean, there's a market for fill-in drivers. We saw
You say that Jack Harvey is every single race,
he
and I'm
is in
sure he
every
brings his
single
racing
race.
overalls
I,
with him.
he might, but I guarantee you he's probably making more behind the microphone than behind the wheel.
That's not the point. He's still a racing driver. If you give him a chance, he's going to get in that car and he's going to go for it.
Now we had Linus Lundqvist was on standby for Nolan Siegel earlier this year,
Hmm.
and but uh, there's not a traveling
But then I would still
brigade
just
of
say
reserve
advocate rather
drivers
being
that
safe
can.
than sorry. You're not
Mm,
stuck. I think you're only doing it for the driver then, because as we talked about, you don't have a team's championship,
mm,
so it's not like you're compromising the team overall. It's just the
mm.
driver. So there's less of an argument to say yes, we absolutely need him to be in this race. You don't.
And speaking of that, I kind of wish we had a team championship. I think we've
Oh,
talked
I
about it
do too.
before,
I've
but
got reasons for it, which I'll get into a little bit. But it's fun you brought that up now because it. Oh, it frustrated. There was a
I
lot
know
that
where you're
frustrated
going
me.
with that and conversations we've had previously, yes, over the weekend. So we did uh, Get checker flag, 95 laps in. Alex Palou was our winner, of course, 3.8 seconds over Christian Lundgaard and Colton Herta finishing third.
Yeah, not too surprised at that. It stayed pretty much as it did pretty early on in the race.
Mhm.
Pato just kind of dropped down, and we'll get to him. But I think once those moves were done fairly early on in the race, it was here's plenty of opportunities to get past Palou, but none of you can actually do it.
Yeah.
So never mind, and you're too busy trying to fight each other, and also feeling it that too. So it was never going to be anything changing too much there.
So, team analysis, we had Team Penske to start it off with. Okay weekend, I would say, by Penske standards this season.
Yeah,
McLaughlin finishing in P10, Power finished in P7, and Newgarden finishing just outside the top 10 and 11th.
yeah. I think a little bit like Andretti Global last weekend, it was a great result by their 2025 standards, but
Yeah,
holy cow, it shouldn't be.
right. And when you're saying, oh, two of our three drivers finished in the top 10,
Or
but
even
that
all
was
three
a
cars finished.
yeah, all three cars finished actually. Yeah, that's a positive weekend for Team Penske. Hopefully, they can carry this momentum, I guess.
Oh,
But I
it's
mean,
they are longing for the season to be over. Three, four races left. You're kidding, right?
yeah, three
Jeez.
races left. We still got to go to. Oh my gosh! But they all qualified pretty well, and yet Newgarden and
I
Power
hate to
made it to the
break it to
Fast
you, Nate.
Six.
That's kind of what they're there to do.
Well, true, and I think a lot of it in this race in particular, I think um, strategy just didn't work out for them. I think a they were on the different strategy than Scott Dixon. And by now, everybody should know run whatever strategy Scott Dixon's running, and you will win races. So, um, yeah, unfortunate that this is what we say is a good weekend for Team Penske.
Yeah, it's damage limitation as much as it can be, but yeah, three races to just try and not have a dumpster fire of a weekend, and let's just focus on 26. I think at this point, and I still think Willpower is doing more or less all that he can do, considering circumstances, to keep that seat. I don't know what more they want from him, especially when you just keep looking at the other two drivers in that team. If they get rid of him, I think it's incredibly harsh. And I'm not saying that Lucas is a bad driver either, but he's not blown everyone out of the water this season. He's had some good performances in that A.J Foyt
Mhm.
car, but he's not done anything, I think, to warrant replacing someone of Will Power's caliber.
Well, if you look at the points, Will Power is only 13 points ahead of David Malukas.
True, but remember in Penske season.
That's Penske equipment versus AJ Foyt equipment as well. Now,
There's a
in
technical
theory,
allowance there.
it's in theory they're the same. I know in theory, but Aaron McLaren, I know you've been waiting for 30 minutes to talk about this team. I know you have. I'm going to turn it
I
over to you
have.
and let you run with this.
It just, this is why I wish we had a teams championship because I was having this debate while watching the race. And I was thinking, technically, Christian Lundgaard hasn't done anything wrong. Technically. But he is not in this championship fight. Pato Ward is, or at least was. I don't think I can count him in it anymore after this weekend. Even if it's mathematically possible, I just don't see it. And for him to start in seventh and overtake Pato, you think, okay, on the one hand, that's what we always would like to see is teammates fighting, no team orders. If you want to get back past me, go for it. However, like I say, you're not in this title fight. Help Pato as much as you can because it will do you a great service with the team. It'll show you off in a different light to other teams for future if you need to be looking elsewhere. And also, it gets you some nice capital with the team for prioritizing strategies when you're potentially in this position in the future, when you're in a championship fight. And it just rubbed me the wrong way. I just thought it's one thing if all the other drivers go for Pato. That's fair enough. They're not in his team, but it's just no teamwork whatsoever. It wasn't a case of him punching a hole through the air. and helping Pato go with him and go, we'll go take him together and maybe we'll both go and get after Pillow and we'll do it that way, a little bit like Thermal. But he just overtook him and buggered off into the distance and kept Herta behind him, and it just rubbed me the wrong way. And I just didn't like the lack of any kind of teamwork or any kind of plan, just this very nonchalant, every man for himself kind of vibe. And it didn't do him any favors in my book. I, not helped by the fact that Ward also just couldn't bloody do anything either. He just let it happen and didn't fight him, and I just got frustrated. And
Well,
Siegel kind of gets a pass because he wasn't really around too much. He did the good thing of being in the lead for 11 laps and staying out of
yeah,
it, but then he kind of did what we expected of him,
yeah.
probably.
Well, if we look at Aaron McLaren as a whole across all of their series, this is kind of the same thing that we see over in F1. You know, they're letting Piastri and
Except both of
Norris,
those drivers are in with a championship. Lundgaard isn't.
well, not anymore. I mean, mathematically he's out of it now, but um, there's a lot still on the line for him. I mean, he's still capable. He's in fifth place in the points right now. I mean, every driver is still up there trying to get points.
He's the fourth loser, is what you're saying. So it doesn't matter. There's no team championship to fight for.
That's true. If there was a team championship, though, it would be a totally different question because Ganassi would still be in the lead
Hmm. But maybe
by
third
a good
place would
amount.
be creeping up to you. Who knows? And you want to solidify saying, which would be fine. I wouldn't mind having that conversation if that were the case. But it's just the fact that, like we were talking about with Ferrucci, there's no need for you to be there because you're not compromising the team. You're just compromising yourself and potentially those around you. Lundgaard, yeah, okay, you've shown that you're just not willing to be a team player and that you go for it, and that's fine. You know, we'd like to have these distinctive characters and we make sure that we know what to expect from you and X, Y, Z. But I think it'll be very interesting if he finds himself in a championship contending position next year and needs a bit of help from his teammates and they just go, oh, do you? Do you now? Tough. I'm not going to do it because why should I?
Yeah, Pato is. I don't know whether he just is now reserved that he's going to finish second in the points because we just didn't see a
Anything.
lot from him. I mean, as easy as he let Lundgaard get by him, and but also I'm glad that you know I mean Lundgaard Christian. I mean, he passed Pato Award on track on merit and finished what 3.5 seconds ahead of him. And are you going to hold up your teammate? I think Pato knew that he did not have the car that day, and he wasn't going to hold up his teammate. Now, if it would have been some other driver that was trying to get by him, he probably wouldn't have given as much slack. But I think honestly, I think Pato just knew that hey, my teammate's got a better ride, he's got a better car, he's got better speed on this day, and I'm going to let him go.
Which is all very gentlemanly, but it's not very racing drivery.
I think when you're 121 points back in the series, where
Then
that's
why does it matter to be nice?
two and
Just
a
have a
half
fight.
races, yeah, yeah, I can't fault Award for not putting up more of a fight with Christian Lundgaard getting by him.
I can. So I think that's where we're going to agreeably
I
disagree.
agree to disagree on this one, I think. So, Andretti Global, um, this was, I mean, Colton Herta
Back to normal.
had a decent day. I guess we can start with that. Started third, finished third.
Yeah, again, the season he's been having, grateful just to finish, be well in the points, and then get a podium out of it. I can see why he didn't do too much because he's probably thinking, well, I'm definitely out of this. And yeah, again, it goes against the argument of, well, then that's even more reason to try and just mix things up, but you've got nothing to lose and everything to gain. But from the performances we've seen from that team and him this year, I believe he didn't have the car.
Yeah.
if you wanted to make that argument. Um, so, you know what, I'm not going to be too harsh on him, other than what I've already said earlier on. And as for the other two, how did we
Well,
ever think that Kirkwood was going to be in with a shout for this championship?
talk about somebody that has fallen off. There was they noted on the broadcast there at the very end that Kyle Kirkwood has lost 120 points to Pelot this month. I
That wasn't a
mean,
kick in the teeth. I don't know what would be.
yeah, yeah. Talk about having a horrible month. I mean, I don't know any driver that's had a worse month than him, except maybe Marcus
Maybe
Ericsson.
Ericsson.
Yeah. You know, so, Ericsson finished 25th out of the race. But yeah, Kirkwood, he was the only driver to receive penalties during the race. And I was going back through the race report, and towards the end, on one of the restarts, he received a penalty for failure to pack up. And I had to dig out the rule book to find out why this was even a thing,
So
where it falls in
when
the
you say
rule.
pack up, in which context?
Well, initially when I saw that on the race report, I'm like, but were they late packing up like their pit box after the race, or? But no, it
Hmm.
was as they were coming to a restart, he left a big enough gap in front of the car in front of him, trying to gain the
Right.
system.
Interesting use of
And
phrasing for that.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, pack the pack literally
Yeah,
getting up.
yes,
But
pack up. Yeah, it
I
makes
would have
sense
thought
now
they
that I
gained.
know what it's for. But yeah, that was a two grid spot penalty. That
Not that it
was
mattered at
adjusted in
that
the race.
point for him. Let's face it.
Yeah, yeah, quite frankly, yeah. Um, Chip Ganassi Racing. That you got, we got a team that bookended it this weekend. Pelot winning the race
Yeah,
and Kiffin Simpson finishing last.
all part of the master plan, as you know. Um, I said at the top of this, it just felt very much like Polo Burial versus everyone else, but in kind of F1 v F2 machinery or IndyCar v Indy NXT machinery. And then you realize that they're all in the same machinery, and you go, "Oh, you shouldn't be able to do that." Dixon just baiting me again with his terrible qualifying and then going up and finishing in fifth, and me going, can you start somewhere decent so that we can see what again, I'm not too annoyed at him because everyone else has got my attention, but imagine if he started 10th or 5th. Imagine what he could do. Maybe we
Yeah,
could have had a proper championship fight this year.
I think he's just toying with us. I think he's far
Oh,
enough into his
very much
career
so.
now. He doesn't have anything else to prove. He's like, I just want to see how far I can get into the field from these back positions.
Mm, I would fully believe that, which impressive because, 19th to 5th, not bad.
Yeah,
And you try out 40 strategies. You go, oh, give me a little less fuel, give me some different tires. Let's just see what I can do.
yeah.
Great. And you're kind of the perfect experimental driver for everyone else in the team, and you can get some great data off it.
Mhm.
But as a neutral, just going, come on, I know what you can do.
Yeah,
Do it properly.
yeah,
Just give me something, please.
yeah. After Dixon finished fifth after qualifying 19th, that moved him into third in the points.
That's why it frustrates me a little bit more. Like, look at what he's able to do still. It's well,
Yeah, and with Kiffin Simpson, he started mid pack, but with his uncharacteristic outing or into Rosenquist, but finishing last, that's got to sting the most after finishing on the podium last week, and
we've said
then
it so many times this month. What a difference a week makes.
right, yeah, except for Penske, same in, same out.
Well,
So
they had a better week.
this weekend was a quote unquote good week for them, I guess. A.J Foyt Racing, Santino Ferrucci, obviously finding his way into the gravel there at the end, finishing 22nd, and David Lucas having a strange up and down day. Qualified sixth, finished 13th.
Yeah, not an awful lot for me to comment on this one. It's kind of what we expect in some respects. Lucas is interesting. He does some better qualifying sessions than we would expect, but then the race just doesn't go his way. We've seen that
Yeah,
so many times this month alone, never mind the rest of the season.
I think that's
So
that
I'm not
technical
too
alliance with
surprised.
Penske.
You're not allowed. Get back.
Yeah. Yeah. I was a little bit surprised by Malukas, making it to the Fast Six. I think there was a lot of drivers that probably had machines that should have started in front of him, but put down the lap when it counted most and got his way in there. So, but yeah, I mean, not much to report for that team. I don't feel like so. Juncos Hollinger Racing. I think this was a than expected weekend for them. Daly finishing 14th and Stingray Rob finishing 19th. Both drivers on the lead lap.
I think at one point Stingray Rob had, I can't remember who it was on, unfortunately, but had quite a nice overtake on someone and or was able to at least keep someone behind. He did an interesting move somewhere in the race that we got to
Mm.
see, and I wish I could remember what it
Yeah,
was.
I can't remember.
Um,
I know which one you're talking about. Yep.
yeah, yeah, and I just thought, oh, good, because I so often criticize him because I'm still trying to figure out why he's there. But at least this was enough to justify it. But it was nice to see that there was something. And as you've written down in the notes, that them just finishing on the lead lap is very much a win for this team,
Yes.
which is awkward in so many ways. But we'll take what we can get. We've got 3 races left. I don't think we're expecting a big turnaround from anyone at this point in terms of performance. We're stuck in the tracks we're in, and that's fine. But at
Yep.
least at least they've got something that they can go.
Hey,
We were on the
yeah, we
lead lap.
did. Yeah, that's right. Meyer Shank Racing. Marcus Armstrong had kind of a quiet day, but managed to bring home a top 10 in eighth place. Maybe you heard his name mentioned once during the broadcast, during the race.
Still suffers from anonymity. Is
Yeah.
is, is his biggest affliction in the series, quietly going about his business. Yeah, very nice for him. I think on a day where again the argument for team standings comes back in here because if there was a team championship and Rosenquist had the day he had, you're going, good job we had Armstrong who could just keep it together and had a very solid qualifying, was able to make up a couple of places.
Mhm.
That's what we need to get some solid points on the board. But again, it's just for him and the drivers, and that's fine. But again, makes you wonder a little bit of what if, especially when you had the race where the interesting moments you sit up a little bit and the race restarts and then sit back down again when you realise that nothing's going to change. You start
Nothing's going to change. Yeah.
mind starts wandering and thinking, oh, okay, maybe this is quite good, or how would this impact if it was a slight change here?
Yeah.
But yeah,
With Herta's third place finish, he did move in front of Armstrong in the points. That's a really close battle for sixth, seventh, eighth right now. Only 8 points between those three drivers: Rosenquist, Herta, and uh, and Armstrong.
which to go off the point you made last week in Toronto, Herder shouldn't be in that, or he should be easily winning that if he's going to be in it in the first place with the driver that he's meant to be.
Well, the longtime listeners of the show will know exactly how I feel about Colton Herta and his
And
abilities.
we're not
So,
trying to bait you into doing it again.
so yeah, well, I'll just let that one go. But yeah, I mean, it was Rosenquist obviously was just in the wrong place, wrong time, and kind of ruined his day. But I do give kudos to him for finishing the race. That, as a driver,
Yeah, we didn't expect it, did we?
that's got to be one of the most frustrating things to be out there racing with other cars that you're not racing.
Hmm.
You're several laps down, but you're still on track, and there's cars all around you that are on the lead lap. Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan Racing. I think this is pretty much exactly what I expected from this team. Uh,
Yeah,
Louis Foster, he did qualify. Well, both Foster and Rahal had decent qualifying, starting ninth and eighth. Um, and then Francesco is the only driver that improves his position, starting 27th and finishing 20th.
he was having a horrid time in qualifying and practice. He just did not know what was going on at all.
Yeah.
Foster was a little bit disappointed in to drop that far back, just based off recent performances, but I get what you mean when you say that these are the sort of positions you expect from them, which is a shame, but I think not too surprising as you say.
Yeah.
And as we joked a little bit a few races ago, possibly even this month, it's been a long month. Um, I was saying maybe they need some more funding in that team so they can develop some things a bit more, or get a different driver in there for that third seat that maybe knows a bit more about what they're doing. And maybe now that he's going to have some time free after May next year, Stephen Colbert can be that late show host that comes in and teams up with Letterman and funds the team a bit more. I'd be up for
Yeah.
seeing a bit more of that.
I was wondering where you're going with that note. Yeah, obviously, we've got some pretty special connections with David Letterman, and uh, you know, his childhood home is now an Airbnb, and it's 4 blocks from my house. And I shop at the grocery store he used to work at, and
So is there still the picture of him up at the side as being employee of the month, or is that been taken down?
no, the original building was torn down, and there's a new grocery store there, uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
No, now I don't want to go.
um, Ed Carpenter Racing, you know, Rasmussen, I think, got a lot of airtime this weekend. Seems like
Rightly so.
the cameras were always finding him.
He did a really nice job, and I was quite surprised when I opened up the grid rival app to see how my fancy IndyCar team had done. To find that, okay, I had put him as kind of like the star driver, so you get slightly more points than the other drivers, but he scored more points than me this weekend than Pelot did. And I was
Yeah.
going, what the hell is going on there? I love it, don't get me wrong, it's helping, but I was not expecting that when I opened this. Um, and he's the driver that we've seen from other teams up and down moments across the season or in this second part of the season improvement, but then it's not been consistent. Rasmussen, he's been building up that first half of the season. We were going, can't quite see why, not quite sure what's going on here, but then in the second half he's really gone on this rise and he's kept going on it. And I think, okay, only 2 positions made up, but he fought for them really nicely, took the opportunities where they came to solidify the position. And when you've seen so many people qualifying ahead of him, and sliding back as far as they did, you go, well, fair enough. I don't mind if it's only 2 positions. That's still 2 more than you had earlier, and you're
That's
inside the
right.
top 10, and that's
Yeah.
what we like.
Yeah. Now, Rossi finished 15th on the lead lap. He just, his second half of the season, he just feels like he's fallen off. I mean, the first half of
Yeah,
the season, he was definitely the kind of a Cinderella story, I would say. And, we were like giving him a lot of kudos. And, hey, Ross is going out there and ECR equipment and showing some of these other teams how it's done. And then he's kind of fallen off where Rasmussen just kind of kept his foot down and
someone's run over his fairy godmother, and the magic's gone.
Dale Coyne Racing. Obviously, we've talked about both of these drivers, Renus VK and Jacob Abel. Abel out early with that pretty strange incident with his accelerator, and then VK out with on-track incident with Kirkwood. So finishing 23rd and 26th. I mean, I don't know what to say about the weekend for them.
You've just said everything, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, this kind of VK is kind of in the same boat as Kiffin Simpson. Goes out and finishes
Hmm.
second on the podium last weekend, and then comes in here and gets punted out and finishes 23rd.
Motorsport is just harsh sometimes, isn't it, with how the
It
racing gods
is.
decide to dole out the good and the bad luck.
But I had a note here. With Nolan Siegel leading 11 laps in this race, that leaves Jacob Abel as the only full-time driver to not lead a lap this season. We've
What have
got
we got to
three
do in the next
races
three
left.
races? What are we
We've
got to
got
do?
three races left. I think we can get him at least one lap.
We only need one,
Yeah, we just need
just
one.
to make it. We just need one.
Now, I tried going back through some stats on this, and I got back about 4 years to see, when was the last time we had this many drivers lead a lap in the season?
Hmm.
And uh, I gave up because this is very uncommon, and I'll have to dig into this some more before the end of the season. But Very, very, very uncommon that we have 26 of the 27 cars lead a lap.
I suppose that does make an argument for IndyCar being better or moving in a better direction because it's at least there are arguments to be made then that you can go, well, it's closer racing, everyone stands more of a chance, you've got more equal machinery, it is there. It's just then the results that don't necessarily reflect that, but the potential is there at least because you're
Yes.
seeing this amount of variety through, be it strategy calls going a bit left field or carnage on track helping out other drivers and this sort of thing. And we take how we well, take it however we can get it. But um, I thought it may be something that would have happened, not necessarily regularly, but more often than not. So for you to say that you've not yet found evidence of anything anywhere near this is quite interesting.
Yeah. I'll dig into that. That'll be an interesting stat to look into. I'll dig more into that one. We'll come back in the next race and talk about that. But wrapping it up, PREMA. I mean, not such a great start to the weekend race for Schwartzman, but salvages 21st place. But Callum Ilott,
I think this is where PREMA need to improve on next. They can get one of their drivers to have a good result in a weekend. They haven't yet managed to get both of them to have
both.
a good result on the same weekend. But yeah, Callum Wallace started 24th, finished 6th.
Yep.
That's not too shabby, is it? Um, Nice to see, and I like that this fuels our argument for which those drivers should stay next season if they're going to get rid of one, because it's definitely gone in my favour this weekend on making a more positive case. But um, yeah, it was just good to see, and I think in a race where I was frustrated with so many drivers, it was nice for Ilott, especially down in PREMA with the season they've been having, to not be one of the drivers I'm going and getting frustrated with.
Well, there's only 5 points separating these two drivers in the standings right now.
I
Now,
feel like
granted,
it should be more.
they are racing for 23rd and 24th in the points, so they are solidly outside of the top 20 where the real money comes into play. But um, you know, I feel like that team has enough
Way to bring
funding
it all back
behind it.
down to earth, mate.
Yeah, yeah. I think this team has enough funding behind them, though. They don't have to necessarily rely on the
Hmm,
purse money at the end of the season. So,
which is a good
but
thing.
yeah, a great finish for Callum Ilott, for a team that we don't expect a whole lot from week in and week out. Finishing sixth place is great. I think one of these mid pack and further back teams are figuring out, oh, we should do what Scott Dixon does to get to the front. But who was your hot driver for the weekend?
I know it's very Route One of me, but it just has to be Alex Below because he just looked in control the whole time, and more so than I think he has done at other points in the season, which is ridiculous to say because I think people would argue that he's had better races or had more dominant displays, but I think this was maybe his most complete one for me, at least lately. I'd have to go back and really look at the rest of the season in a bit more detail again and remind myself. But you think about the fact that he got the job done on Saturday with qualifying, led straight away, didn't look under pressure at all, had a nice built that nice gap early on, like you say, and then just every race restart didn't look in any danger, didn't sweat it, didn't make any uncharacteristic errors of any kind really. I think he had one or two possibly, but I was thinking there was a moment in turn two rather, where he went a little bit wide, but he had the buffer to
Yeah.
forward him that way. He can get away with that once or twice, and it's not going to topple him. And he didn't need to push too much. Like I said, we were talking about it at the start that he doesn't disappear onto the distance and get like 30 seconds. I think he could if he wanted to, but he just doesn't see the need to. And
Yeah.
that's potentially a bit scary for next year.
Yeah. For me, I'm giving it to Christian Lundgaard. Um,
Mm.
I know that you don't necessarily agree, but he passed Pat O'Ward on merit and got his car up to second place. And it, you know, if nobody's going to be able to beat Pelot week in and week out, second place is essentially the next winner. So I got
We're
to
doing
give
what
it
we
to
did in
Christian.
F1 in 23. We're just covering up Verstappen's name at the top of the pile and going, oh,
That's
this
right.
looks great now.
Yeah, yeah. My not hot, um, you know, I've got Kiffin
Somewhat
Simpson
harsh,
written down
this.
here. I've got Kiffin Simpson written down here, and I think it's still justified, but I'm going to make him the honorable mention
Okay.
because IndyCar officiating, I think, needs to be the not hot for
Hmm,
me this weekend.
that's
I mean,
fair.
they just not once but twice blew caution flag deployment and just totally unacceptable. And I think the more we talked about it here on the podcast, the more worked up I got about it. I'm like, you know what? No, that's my not hot for the weekend.
We're going to have a Nate Rage podcast post season. It's just be Colton Herter and the stewards.
How about for you? Who's not hot?
I'm criticizing you for being a little harsh there, and yet I've chosen everyone else except for Dixon, Armstrong, Rasmussen, and Nyla because I feel like everyone else just let themselves, the fans, and their teams down, to be quite frank. Um, we had a yeah, it ties into my hard luck award, so I might as well just do the two for one here. It ties into my thing there. I've got us as the fans as getting the hard luck award because after last weekend in Toronto, we saw what Pato was able to do. We saw Pillow kind of out of it a little bit and going, okay, we're on this now. It's going to be tight, but it's going to go down to that last race, and it's going to be a little bit like last year, where it's an outside shot, but there is a chance, and that's more than we thought we were going to get. And in one single weekend, we've gone straight back to
Yeah.
this most dominant part of the season, and we've all lost out. And I think it just again goes down to that talking point we've had all season long of everyone who isn't Alex Palou racing this season hasn't figured out that they have to somewhat work together if they want to beat him. And that's only going to be a one time thing because the next year you can go back to all trying to kill each other and that's fine. But this year, you're going to have to do something different. And that's why you've all failed and you've all been miserable at it. And it was such a tease in Toronto that I'm just even more frustrated about it now. So everyone's in the bin for me on this one. And I'm turning my attention to Indy next because while I still think Dennis Hauger is going to win that, Kyle Collette did a bang up job this
He
weekend.
sure did.
And
Yeah.
Dennis Hauger made some uncharacteristic errors, and that championship has now gone a lot closer. And I'm going, you know what? Still don't think it's going to be any different for who wins, but it's a damn sight more interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I'm giving the hard luck to Felix Rosenquist. I mean,
Yeah,
the last couple of races have been tough for him, I feel like, for different reasons. This one, obviously, uh, taking the punt uh,
Simpson.
from Simpson, and having to go out there and run 4 laps down the entire day. It's just like, ugh, I feel bad for the guy.
I am hoping that someone does edit that collision, considering Simpson's name, and just gets the Homer oh kind of sound effects in as he hits it.
So in the points, obviously Alex Palou's leading. Pedal Ward is still technically, mathematically,
How far behind
slim
is Dixon
chance. Uh,
to Pato?
uh, to Pedal Ward, oh boy, 77 points.
Come on, Dixon. You know
I
what?
mean,
I care about second place
mathematically,
now.
Dixon could still finish second in the points. He's out of the
I want that to
championship,
happen now. I
but
think, you know what, Pato's, I'll settle for second. It's fine. Dixon, take him. Rub it in.
yeah. So, um, yeah, and the last 3 races of the season, I think, are just formulaic at this point. We just
Yeah,
go
I
run
mean,
them, get the season over, award the hardware.
I'm looking forward to Portland. It's a track that I just quite enjoy. I don't know why I do. It's placed somewhere quite scenic, and I just enjoy the circuit for some reason. I'm not entirely sure, but I just quite like it. And then we've got a couple of ovals, which I don't mind, and we can have some potential for some interesting things there. Polo is not bulletproof on those just yet, so there is potential for some wild cards to come in and go. I'll take this instead, as you don't have to take as many risks, and you can still win this by probably coming 10th in the next 3 races. if
Yeah.
Pato's going to keep doing what Pato does.
And I am not a huge fan of Portland. As
I
our,
remember this conversation.
that's our next race on the calendar. But obviously, huge fan of Milwaukee, and then the oval race in Nashville to wrap up the season. But you were talking about our Indy Next Championship. We want to just
Yeah,
plug it real quick. Dennis Hauger's still leading, but with Cal Colette's two victories this weekend, he's moved within 42 points.
yeah, much
And
closer than we thought it was
we
going to
still
be.
have three races to go in that series. So
Yeah, there's it would be a shame for Dennis after the season he's had for him to lose it now. But I like the jeopardy. It gives us something interesting to watch, and
mm,
also if you're these are the drivers that have nothing to lose, a little because you saw from the chaos that we had in the second race, drivers going up and getting on the podium and getting best results of their season. You go, yeah, you've
mm,
got to take advantage of it while you can because you can't guarantee that this happens again. And I like how that closes up the rest of the field, and you've got Miles Rowland the threat now for being kind of best of the rest because he had an uncharacteristically bad weekend as well by his own standards, and it just makes it a bit juicier. And I think that's we're obviously lacking that a bit in IndyCar because all the top teams have forgotten that they're top teams.
yeah. So that'll be an interesting shootout as well. And that might be what we end up covering more going into the last three weekends of the season because of how close that points battle is getting. But one bit of news, just outside of the IndyCar world, but not far from from the headquarters, the capital of speed. Bubba Wallace won this weekend's Brickyard 400 at IMS.
Quite enjoyed it. I watched the highlights, the extended highlights back, and I like him as a driver. He just has such bad luck, and he's always just missing out. I think on getting into the playoffs and all these sorts of things. So for him to not just take victory, but then also the victory guarantees that you get into the playoffs is
Yeah,
it was just so nice for him. So relieved to finally do that. And what was it? There was a caution out with 6, 7 laps at the end, and they had to go into overtime. And if you're obviously, oh no, why?
yeah,
Don't do this. I've
yeah.
just
There was
had this. Damn it.
a lot of questions came into play there on whether he had enough gas. They said that his crew chief said that he had enough gas if they needed to do a single overtime restart, but probably not if they had to do two.
Mm,
And then they ended up doing two
yeah.
restarts, and he still had enough in the tank to do a pretty substantial burnout down the front stretch. So, but
And something that I'll add on to that as well is I think it was for the official NASCAR race. Um, I don't know. I think it was the Grand Marshal. You're not really on social media, so I don't think you'll have seen. But they had possibly my favorite one
I
of
know
the
who this
season
is.
so
Yes,
far. Yes, they had the Cookie Monster,
Cookie
and
Monster was the Grand Marshal.
I think it was Tony Breidinger, the NASCAR Craft the Truck Series. I can't think of Craftsman
Craftsman
Truck
truck.
Series. There we go.
Yeah,
That's the word I was trying to say. I was thinking of Craft and going, that's definitely the wrong thing. Um, she had some social media content where she was essentially taking Cookie Monster around to watch the NASCAR race and telling him what was going on. I thought, this is what social media is for.
yeah,
This is the content I'm
yeah.
here for. This
That's
is what
right.
we need to be doing. NASCAR taking over.
That's right. Yeah, Bubba Wallace became the first African American to win a top event at IMS. Um, there are at least two other black drivers that I know that have won races at IMS. Do you happen to know one of them?
Feel like I should from this one, and I want to say Willie T. Ribs.
That is one of them. He won a minor race, SVRA race a few years back.
Is that
But
the one you thought I was going to get?
no, that is definitely not the one that I thought you were going to get.
I had a bad feeling you were going to say that. Damn.
And
Oh, I'm going to kick myself now.
the other one is a major race,
Oh
not a
no.
minor race.
Oh, tell me I'm going to kick myself.
Sir Lewis Hamilton in
Oh, of course.
2007.
Yes. Formula One. I was thinking American racing, like a
I
proper
knew I
American
might be able to
series.
trip you up on that one, but
Damn it. Typical. I get Willie T. Roos. Get bloody
You
close.
get Willie T. Riffs, but you can't get Lewis Hamilton. But that wraps it
Oh,
up for this week. And we're going to be back in a few weeks with the bitnile.com Grand Prix of Portland. We've got some recent race winners in the field. I don't know how much of a chance they have of repeating. Will Power was our latest winner in
oof.
2024, also a winner in 2019. Scott McLaughlin won in 2022, and Alex Palou, and wouldn't you know it,
That,
also two-time winner in 21 and 23. So um, could be more of the same this coming race, but we'll
we also
see.
saw Ferrucci on pole last year, so we might have something interesting in terms of the shape of the order. It's one of
Very
the
true.
tracks where we've seen a little bit of chaos there. Well, it didn't work out for him in the race. At least it makes start potentially more interesting. I'll
This
say
could be
that
the
now.
one.
Watch Polo get pole again, so it doesn't
This
matter.
could be the one where Abel pulls out and
Oh,
leads a
imagine.
lap.
You know what? At that point, I'd say, you know what? Let's get Abel in first. Let's get Polo in second, and Polo just be nice. Just give him that first lap.
Just give
Hold everyone else up. Just get that statistic done. Do whatever you want to do after. Nerf him off for all I care. Just let him have that first lap.
That's right. So, but we'll be back after this race, and we'll see everybody soon.